Hey there, Southern California sport fishing and climate fans. This is Chris Dunn, the fishing weatherman, with your El Nino 2022 update. Yes, we're talking about El Nino, or I should say the lack of El Nino, because we are and have been in a La Nina pattern, which is cooler than average surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. I want to point that out because it's kind of a common thing that folks around here think that, oh, it's El Nino, that affects us here in Southern California. Actually, to be true to the definition of what El Nino is, it's what's happening in certain regions along the Pacific Ocean, along the equator. So what's happening down there, that truly defines what's happening with El Nino. It's not necessarily what's happening here. However, I think in years past, when we really have a strong signal down along the equator, we typically will see a connection or correlation. Don't necessarily know if that causes it, but it sure seems like that there is a connection there with El Nino along the equator and a warmer push of water that comes up from the south. It may alter some ocean currents that allows for that push of warm water. And we certainly have seen that in years past. 2015, 2016 was the last really big example of a big warm water push that we had up along the coast. And that was a significant warm water push. If you can remember, we had Oahu off of the Orange County coast. I don't think that's ever happened before, and it probably won't happen again, although things are changing climate-wise. Here's a look at what's happening right now with these sea surface temperature anomalies. That's the departure from normal. Blue indicates cooler than normal, and as you can see right up in here, off the coast of Baja California and most of the Southern California bight, we have this big area of blue all the way back out to near Hawaii. That's cooler than average waters, and that's probably not going to allow for a clear warm water pathway for some of the warm water species like yellowfin tuna and dorado and skipjack to come right on up the coast. In fact, we haven't really heard a whole lot about what's happening down the coast as far as the exotics are concerned. But then again, most people are really concentrating on what's happening here closer to home with those gigantic sized bluefin tuna that are really close to home. Interesting to point out that in that region along the equator, over time, the water temperatures have increasingly become warmer and warmer and warmer. All the solid lines that you see on this graph here, that's basically the 30-year running average starting in the 60s, and then 70s, 80s, 90s, past the year 2000, that running average keeps getting warmer and warmer and warmer as we get up to these dash lines here towards the top. So along the equator, where we measure El Nino, and also around here, I think we have certainly seen some effects of a changing ecosystem, a changing climate, ocean climate specifically. For example, if you've been fishing around here since the 70s or the 80s, how many times back then could you recall us catching triggerfish locally? That becomes a more and more regular catch. Also, the offshore scene. It was almost a regular deal where you'd get albacore by the 4th of July, and that's all you would be catching until September, and then the bigger fish would show up off of Morro Bay in the Central California coast. So I think that we have seen things changing. Of course, the albacore migration patterns obviously been changing. We've seen lots of albacore off the coast of Oregon, Washington, and even Northern California in recent years. They have been, by and large, just bypassed Southern California altogether in the last few. I don't know that that's necessarily due to El Nino or La Nina, maybe just an overall change in their migratory patterns, and it's going to take something significant for that to change back. Now, we do have, as of this first week of June, 58-degree water at the Tanner Bank buoy, way, way out there. Nobody's fishing out there, but water temperatures offshore, closer to home in that bluefin zone, have been holding pretty steady in the last few days, 63 to 65 degrees or so by my best estimation from what I've been able to gather in some of the reports out there. Closer to the coast, much more variability between warming and cooling, and it's much more susceptible to rolling over and some upwelling if we get a lot of wind in here. By the way, this chart shows where we are headed in the future. The blue lines indicate the chance that La Nina will be in place, and this solid line right here in the middle, that's the 50-50 chance. So there is at least a 50% chance, if not slightly greater, that La Nina will continue through the end of the year and until next year. As far as El Nino, the warm water phase, that's the red lines here at the bottom. And there's a 10% or less chance that we could see El Nino develop through the end of the year and into early next year. So it looks like this cool weather phase will continue for the next several months and on into next year. And at the very least, we'll have a neutral condition. What that means to our fishing, not sure. Will the albacore return? Not sure. Again, a really big change has to happen to the migratory patterns of the albacore to get them pushed back into Southern California, maybe locked into a new pattern. But then again, we've seen with the bluefin tuna, some years they have been relatively absent. And for most folks around here, it's probably you have to go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s to find a large quantities of bluefin tuna close to home, like we have been finding this past year and even last year. So it's really something spectacular, and we hope it doesn't go away, but if it does go away, maybe something will take its place, hopefully. That is your El Nino 2022 update. You can always catch us on the web with your latest weather forecast at thefishingweatherman.com. As always, if you're heading out there, good luck and be safe.